Good afternoon and welcome to Interlagos as we home interview of the halfway stage in the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship in 2025. We have come to Interlagos, a scene of many championship finales in the past of all sorts of different series, but this time around it is just round 5 as we get to the halfway stage of the regular season in the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship. It is myself, Ian Lilly, and Ron Miles with you for this round of the championship. Good to be alongside you for this one, Ron. Another hour of racing ahead of us at a circuit, as I say, that is used for championship finales normally. This time around, it's smack bang in the middle of the season with its real challenge that comes with it. But most importantly for us, it's great racing as well, and it's plentiful overtaking opportunities.
Championship finale or otherwise, Interlagos will always put on some absolutely fantastic racing action, regardless of what kind of race car you put around here. The SR10s have put on some brilliant racing action here over this final week of Season 2 of 2025 here in the Sim and the officials, and here in the league, really expecting what we saw last year here in the America's Championship with some absolutely fantastic racing action. This season and the 4 races leading up to this have not disappointed, so I have a feeling here for round number 5 we're in for a good one.
Yeah, let's have a look at the rounds that we've had so far, and indeed it has been a good season. Kicked off at the Nordschleife and then to the North American leg of the season at Road America, Road Atlanta, Montreal, in Interlagos here today. Rumoured next season for the next 2 rounds will be Watkins Glen and Sebring for the next couple of rounds, but we will see on that. These are the prizes that are up for grabs here this season in both the European and America's Championships. The top 7 all qualify for the World Finals in 2025, with second place getting free entry to the 2026 season. The Drivers' Champion, on top of all of that, getting a 12 months iRacing subscription as well. The next 7 all qualify for the Last Chance qualifier. The Team's Champions receive a track per driver and free entry into next season, as do the Vice Champions in the Teams Series. In the drivers' standings, pro standings, currently being led by Aiden Young at the moment. Ryan Odo just in behind after Young has got on a win of 2 wins in a row in the last 2 rounds. Obodo Diaz is not too far away either, though, after some consistent results so far this season. John Botafour is only 5 points ahead of Graham Sanders, with Lucas Friera next in line. Diego Zuccarelli in 7th position, followed by David Unger, who missed a round at the second round of the season. Cameron Martineau has only been in the first round this season, and Colin Robb, while entered, has not raced yet. Jose Gonzalez is leading in the AM standings at the moment. It's a bigger field, of course, and 13 points only down to John Benelud. Then it is Jared Junkovic, who is in 3rd place, ahead of JR Gregory, RaceSpot's own, 31 points behind. Colby Book, another 2 points further back. Chris Reagan, Adrian Fernandez, Charles Krasic, Joel Jacqueline, and Cedric Ohion round out the top 10. In the team standings, Hydros Geodesic Racing in the pros are leading ahead of Team ERC relatively comfortably, and Flying Line Racing are ahead of Lima Racing by 52 points in the AM teams standings as well. So that is how we're looking going into this round of the championship. 26 degrees on the circuit, 26 degrees Celsius. That's 79 degrees Fahrenheit on the circuit. It is still 20 to 10 in the morning. And so track temperature is going to stay rather cool. It can get very, very hot round here at Interlagos, that's for sure. Thankfully for these drivers, temperatures are under control so far for this qualifying session, and therefore likely for the race as well.
Yeah, it's rather cool here, considering some of the hot temperatures that you see both in real life and in the sim at Interlagos. I think some of the hottest temperatures I've ever seen in sim racing have gone down here, and I believe it's Winton down there in Australia that we won't be visiting throughout the season, I believe. But still, it can be rather hot here, but honestly, looking at the temperatures, they're rather perfect. And even though the relative humidity is a bit on the higher end, that's basically just like a normal afternoon in Florida. So that's nothing too out of the realm for these drivers. So looking like rather ideal conditions, and winds are calm as well, teetering around only 2 to 1 mile an hour. So these drivers basically have a perfect weather forecast for this race ahead, and really looking forward to seeing what these drivers can do in this qualifying session that we're still in right now. It's a 10-minute long 4-lap session. These drivers have the racetrack all to themselves, so won't have to worry about traffic or anything of the sorts. Just need to ace every single corner and ace every single lap to try and start up towards the front.
Yeah, absolutely. track position, we'll speculate as to whether that is going to be super important over the course of this race, but you want to start as far towards the front as you possibly can. And at the moment, it's Aiden Young who has got the best time, just half a tenth of a second faster than Ryan Odo right now. There comes number 44 of Cedric Ohion out the pit lane as well, one of the AM drivers. In terms of the pro field today, by the way, Obada Diaz is back again as well to go with the two I mentioned up towards the front. David Unger is back again, which is good to see. Only missed one round this season, but good that he's back in the field again. Further down, you can see Rasim Fazui in the race as well, in the pros, as well as Graham Sanders and Lucas Vieira. And we do have some new drivers to talk about. Fazui is one of them in the pro standings. He's a real-life driver coach of Team Lima Racing. His R rating is very high, and so he's been put straight into the pro class. And it's good that we're going to get one or two more entries before this season is done, because especially in the pro class, the pro class has been rather quiet, especially when you compare it to the European Series that goes on other Sundays here on RaceSpotTV in the Radical Sim Racing Championship.
Yeah, I think I saw the reigning Radical European champion, Mr. James Berry, who won the official broadcasted race here on the RaceSpotTV YouTube channel a little bit earlier on this week, just a couple of days ago. Saw him in the YouTube chat a little bit earlier on in the show. And yeah, I mean, even still, it's been a rather intense championship battle here in the pro division. I've had 3 different winners up to this point. Ryan Odo, who was your vice champion in 2024 here in the Americas Championship. Ubaldo Diaz, who's been rather impressive, and your provisional pole sitter of Aiden Young off the back of 2 straight wins at Road Atlanta and Montreal. As we are still in the Americas, albeit swapping out North America for South America, I wonder if Aiden Young will be able to continue on that form. In a series like this, momentum could be super important, considering the big breaks in between some of the races here from this season's schedule. So having back-to-back wins in the back of your head, that's going to really help with that old morale heading into this race.
Yeah, he was the first repeat winner for Aiden Young last time out. And it's been a great progression for him this season, I've got to say, over the course of the 4 races that we've had so far. If you cast your minds back to the Nürburgring Nordschleife round, which kicks off our season. In fact, we only used the Nordschleife, we didn't even use the Grand Prix on that particular occasion. Young got the pit stop wrong, effectively with a little bit of inexperience, thought that he could take tyres and fuel at the same time, and ended up taking a long tyre change that put him towards the back of the pro field and lost him quite a lot of points. In the last couple of weeks, the last 3 rounds, he's won those points back again. And as I say, he is now leading the championship by 14 points, but that's a real marked progression, I think, for Aiden Young to go from not actually knowing what happens in the pit stops of these cars to actually winning races and winning now 2 on the bounce.
Yeah, getting into that sort of groove and learning the ropes of a series like this can be super vital to being successful in this series. So we have certainly seen that from Aiden Young, and he's just also matched himself in terms of pace as well. Was quickest earlier on in practice in front of Ryan Odo, and is currently on the provisional pole here in qualifying. One driver that I want to raise, though, who's hoping to have a good show here at his hometown race, is your reigning Radical Americas champion of Lucas Vieira. We follow him right down the number 18 car, currently slotted 3rd in qualifying. Now Vieira, he was the consistent force throughout last season. He wasn't going out just throwing haymakers week in and week out and getting those fantastic results. He was just the consistent force, rarely if ever fumbling, and even if he did have a bad start to a race, he would usually make his way back up through the field again. Vieira's quick, just hasn't really had the results up to this point in this season for a reigning champion. It's a bit of a championship hangover that Vieira has found himself in at the present moment, but looking to turn things around here at Interlagos. Just jumped his way up to P2 in front of his teammate of Ryan Odo. Those 2 battled for the championship last season, and Odo, he's also looking for a bounce back as well, because ever since that win in the opening round at the Nordschleife, things really haven't gone well for the young American. So I think both those 2 Team ERC teammates in that pro category looking to bounce back here at Interlagos. And I think based off their qualifying performance and their practice performance earlier on, they have a very good shot to get it done here tonight.
In the AM class, Jose Gonzalez is still leading the way. He's obviously ahead of the championship, but He's also leading the way in this qualifying session right now, just 6 tenths away from Aiden Young, actually, in the current standings, as Rasim Fazui now gets out to 4th position, as you'd expect from him. So yeah, we continue to follow Gonzalez. He's in that 8th position. 2 tenths around about, a quarter of a second or so, faster than Jarek Tunkovic. He's currently in the 2nd position. There is John Bertafor, one of the geodesic drivers, making his way over the line. Is that much of an improvement? Doesn't need much to move up, and he does move up. There you go. Onto the 2nd row for John Bertafor there.
Yeah, and Botafer, he's been a very good driver to follow up to this point. Those team cars there for his team have been super quick up to this point in the season. We'll have to wait and see which one of those drivers is going to be the first to break through and win a race here in this season. As we've got about 20 seconds left to go in qualifying. I think just about everyone has gotten their lap times on the board, and we can now switch our attention to this 1 hour long race in front of us. Gonna be a real tough one for these racers. Conditions still looking good when it comes to weather. These cars don't have rain support as well, so won't have to worry about that. But instead, you've got 2 pit stops to worry about, a really tough pit entry and exit, and a super undecided race.
Here's the starting grid then for the hour-long 5th round of our championship. Aiden Young on pole again here at Interlagos, with Lucas Vieira 1 tenth behind alongside. Ryan Odo and John Bertafor will be on row 2, with Rasim Fazui and Alvaro Diaz sharing row 3. Graham Sanders rounds out that top clump of pro drivers ahead of Jose Gonzalez, the AM pole sitter. Jarek Tunkovic and John Bentley round out the top 10, with James Frasnick and David Unger. Gerald Gregory and Alfredo Terza Souza are on row 7, ahead of Joel Jacklin and Robert Neville. Charles Kurdic and Corey Buck are on row 9, with rounding out the top 20, and indeed the field, some more drivers. Cedric Orion and Gregor Castillo to round out the field at the back end. Well, there's so many factors to think about going into this race. 2 pit stops, as you say. First things first, though, that big, important run in towards turn number 1.
Now, in real life racing and in this sim, tell me the amount of times we've seen a run down into turn number 1 and 2 and 3 around here and in some drama. It's happened here in the Radicals, it's happened in the officials, it's happened in these league races, and if these drivers aren't careful, it can happen again here tonight. That run off through the Senna S is super tough, but turn 4, nothing to scoff at either. That's going to be a real challenging section of this racetrack right at the start, and especially with cold tires too. Wow, that's going to be a test.
Well, Aiden Young waited the longest to grid up, but now he's ready, and we're all ready. 20 drivers set to do battle for an hour at Interlagos as the green flag waves and Aiden Young goes nowhere. Alongside him immediately, Lucas Vieira takes the lead in towards turn number 1 with a much better launch off the line. 3 wide very nearly for 3rd position as they filter through the Senna S for the first time. It's Lucas Vieira who leads ahead of Aiden Young, then Ryan Odo. Rasim Fazui is in 4th place ahead of John Bertafor, who just drops backwards to 5th place. He immediately pulls out to the left-hand side here to try and win that place back. And look at this on the outside line. Oh, my word, late on the brakes from Alvaro Diaz by the looks of things there. Super late on the brakes on the outside. They all get through, though. Turn 4 and through the first sector for the first time.
Incredible bravery in these cars that have no ABS, no traction control, and cold tires off the start. Ubaldo Diaz in the 108 car, after winning the race earlier on in the season at Road America, hasn't had a good run the past 2 races. He's coming here at Interlagos, and he wants to prove something here today. He's getting some good moves done in the early stages. Already jumping his way up to 6. Jared Dunkovic is leading it at the moment in AM, one last time out of Montreal, and he's looking good at the present moment. But as these drivers head their way out of the final real corner around this racetrack through turn number 12 of Zhong Sao, we now have this massively long flat-out blast to end this lap and start the next one. And now we're going to start to see this game of Radical SR10 Leapfrog.
Well, they got, it's a very important corner, that final real corner, as you called it there through Chun Xiao, but Graham Sanders got it wrong there. He just went a little bit wide, and the top 2 in the AM class are both ahead of him. Meanwhile, Aiden Young goes for the lead in towards turn number 1. Inside line on Lucas Vieira. He brakes late enough, and he's got the lead. He's a bit deep, though, into the first part of the Senna S, and look at this. Vieira's all over the back of him here. Here comes Ryan Odo as well. Is it going to be 3 wide, maybe? And where's Fazui going to go? It's not going to be 3 wide, in fact. Odo's going to bide his time here, and he's going to wait on the right-hand side, maybe save a bit of fuel as Young takes the lead. Vieira almost on the defensive for that second place, and Odo will keep third for the moment, but for how long? Will he go for second on the way towards Ferradura? He's having a peek. He's having a proper look. He's going for it. Up the inside into second. And Vieira's going to lose 3 places. Oh, he's going to lose more. Contact through Ferradura. And he goes wide off into the runoff area.
And that's the dangerous game of teammates going side by side, heading off through one of the most challenging sections of racetrack from the entirety of this season, through the uphill 6 and 7 here at Interlagos. The two teammates may be making contact. Did get a good view of that from that live shot. I wonder if it was contact or whether or not Vieira just had a big sideways snap. That was a big darty moment from him, though, so I'm not entirely sure if that was just a sideways snap. I think there may have been some contact with the teammates. If you're Lucas Vieira, you are going to be fuming at your young American teammate. Let's take a look at this move. You can see a little bit of a curb whack there, contact being made. I think that's a little bit of iRacing glue sticking those two cars together, and Vieira had to just shoot that steering wheel to the other direction to try and make sure those both cars didn't go off.
Well, that was definitely contact. There's no doubt about that. And Vieira will be feeling aggrieved about that one, with Reinaldo making contact with him up towards that fast right-hander. Well, at the moment, the top 5 are all still in one long line. Vieira's got a bit of work to do to get back on terms, and Sanders has done a decent job here to get back on terms as well, by the way, in that 7th position. So the slipstream fest that you were talking about, it's starting to materialise already, really. It's seemingly relatively difficult to get away, at least in the first stint here at this circuit.
And now, flashing my mind back to the 2024 Radical Americas Championship when they ran here, those races were total slipstream fest, but the format was a little bit different last year. We had a 15-minute long sprint set the grid for the 45-minute long feature race where you only had one pit stop to worry about all throughout the night. Here, on the other hand, 60 minutes long, so you just combine the two races and now you got 2 pit stops to worry about. So I wonder if that change in format is maybe going to make the slipstream a little less important here. I think it will have the same importance, but I think a bit of that will shift from track positioning all the way through into maybe a bit of fuel saving. We've seen drivers go on alternate strategies thus far this season, really be able to make that work out well for themselves. May end up seeing it here today.
I think Reinaldo has already shown us that he's doing that. He had a chance to make it 3 wide when Young and Vieira going side by side down the Retro Aposta in towards the Cedar de Lago turn 4 on this racetrack. But in the end, he just lifted off and watched on from that 3rd position. And now that he's in behind Aidan Young, have a look at this. Relatively close going into turn 4 and in towards turn 1 as well. He was relatively close. But I think this is Odo putting his cards on the table in the first 5 minutes and showing everybody here that he's quite obviously conserving fuel early on.
And I think whoever can conserve the most amount of fuel and really set themselves up for the later stages of this race, it's good to be leading at this point, but at the same time, this is not when the pay window is open. That pay window opens at about 54.5 minutes time, so these drivers need to set themselves up well for that stage of the race instead of this right now, as we take a look at some massive battling and contact being made. That's Robert Neville coming to blows, and that, I believe, was Charles Krasik in the 153 there in the Flying Line racing car, very similar to the one of J.R. Gregory. And you can see that contact being made as they headed their way down the hill out of 2. Shades of Ocon and Verstappen back in 2018, albeit that was about a half a mile farther down the road.
That was not 7 years ago, was it? Dear me. Anyway. Towards turn 1.
It was.
Odo again very, very close to the back end of Young. Fazui gets closer as well. I thought Odo got a bit of a poor run actually at Junshao that time, but clearly it was fine. And he was able to keep that position. There is J.R. Gregory. You mentioned that he looks very similar in livery to that car we saw a moment ago, Charles Krasic, and indeed there you can see the evidence of that. J.R. Gregory currently running in 11th place, 4th place in the AM class, and that's just off the podium. A podium, by the way, that Jose Gonzalez is on the bottom of after getting pole position in the AM class, losing 2 places immediately.
Yeah, now Jose Gonzalez, he's had a interesting season up to this point in time. Won back-to-back at Road America and Road Atlanta. Since then, though, he's really had some stiff competition in that class. You got John Benlett currently leading, who definitely has something to prove. Now, we mentioned this during the Montreal broadcast. John Benlett, between races number 3 and 4 of this season, was able to pick himself up an actual real-life Radical Canada Cup ride outside of the sim, and ever since then I think we've seen a bit more confidence out of the driver of the number 8, Jared Dunkovich, who's only joined this series in the later stages, finds himself in your current AM lead at the moment, won last time at Montreal. So Jose Gonzalez, despite having back-to-back wins in the early stages and a somewhat comfortable position in the championship, as contact being made a little bit farther in the back involving Jared Gregory. Just to wrap up that point, Jose Gonzalez feeling the burn at this point.
No! Oh, it's a double whammy for J.R. Gregory. Got hit into the Bico de Pato on the way in, and then got hit on the way out as well. Oh my word, James Franznik was the one who did the initial damage, and he felt that he had to wait for him even after his second incident, even though the second incident wasn't his fault. He felt he had to wait for both of them. Well, they're both into the pit lane now, and that's no surprise. It's very unlucky. Very rarely do you see someone recover from a spin that wasn't their fault straight into another spin that wasn't their fault.
Yeah, and that was so unfortunate there. You could see that number 30 car. Those two just merging into that same section of the racetrack. It was the other 30 who was involved in that bit of drama. So unfortunate for Alfredo Terraz Souza, who just understeered his way all through that exact same section of the racetrack as JR was taking a very solid line, it must be said. That wasn't like a terrible rejoin from him at all. And see that contact being made. Franzek going for the dive, not able to make it work. That section, it feels so inviting to go for an attempt at overtake heading off through there, but can so easily go so wrong.
Yeah, as we've seen in the past, it certainly can, and no doubt we'll see it in the future as well of this race. In towards turn number 1 again. Let's settle down out front now. The first 10 minutes are about to pass us by. And Aidan Young still leading here, going for 3 in a row in this series. The championship leader looking to extend that, but he's got Reinaldo behind him. Rustin Fazui as well, on debut in 2025. Then John Bodefort, then Ubaldo Diaz. Lucas Vieira is in this train again, by the way. And Graham Sanders is at the back, despite running a little bit wide on lap 1 or 2, coming out of the final corner. He is still in this front group, and there you go, there's the slipstream fest that you were talking about here. It is very much materialised, and after 10 minutes it'll be only the pit stops that can start to split these guys apart.
As we take a look at some side-by-side racing involving Alfredo Souza and Cedric Ohayon. Oh, as that's a moment from Souza coming out of the turn, noses it into the wall as well. That was heading out of turn number 4 and 5, has a snap on the outside and takes a one-way trip into the outside wall. That's an unfortunate moment there for Souza to go rejoin the racetrack all the way down to P16. I was going to raise this, talking about your P3 runner of Razem Fauzi. If he was able to get the win in his debut race here in this series, that would be a very impressive performance. The real question is, though, how much is he going to force this issue? Obviously, getting a win on debut would be fantastic, but he's joined so late that he's not really going to be involved in the championship battle. So, do you get involved in it and be the true racer, or are you going to maybe take it a bit easy? John Bodefort is going to put a move on him down into turn number 1, and he didn't really contend that too much, did Razem Fauzi. So, I wonder if he's really going to fight that too hard in the number 16 car.
That was interesting, that the way he was pretty generous in allowing Bodefort through. You can see the positional changes. The only one really in the top 10 is that Vieira has dropped down into 6th position. That's only because Gonzalez just made 2 passes. Here he is on the outside of Dunkovich. It's not going to be easy on the exit of turn 4. They are doing battle in the AM class, showing the pros how it's done, really, as far as a spectacle standpoint. Outside line for Gonzalez. That's a long way round at Ferradura, and you're not going to manage that on this occasion. Maybe the cutback for the next corner. No, not this time round either. The AM drivers putting on a show where the pros are being cautious for now.
Giving us a rather spicy battle as it stands at the present moment. Always love to have one of those, and three very talented racers behind the wheel of SR10s. Dunkovic has been very impressive ever since he joined the series a couple of weeks ago, a couple of rounds ago, I should say. The number 9, very, very impressive, and looking pretty good at the present moment is your top running of those AM competitors. Those AM battles could usually be just as intense and exciting as a battle for the race win, which, considering you can see the top 7 all covered by just about nothing down in through the Senna S at the start of this lap, really speaks volumes about how racy those AM competitors are as well. But Aiden Young still holding on to the race lead. Ryan Odo slotted in P2. This is kind of like itchy and scratchy between these two racers. I think Odo, he's saying, you know what, I'm good. I don't need to go for a move. I can just stay in the draft, stay in the slipstream, get that better fuel number, and be able to do a little bit of a strategy chicanery, so to speak, to be able to jump my way into the race lead. And as that's going on, Aiden Young, he's getting played in that game, the game that Ryan Odo is playing.
This is a great battle for the AM lead, I've got to say. Much more entertaining than what it is at the front of the pro field. Again, Gonzalez on the outside at Ferradura. This time, though, he's got further alongside. And now then, down on the brakes for turn 8. This is a big chance for Gonzalez, because next one's turn 9. It's a left-hander. Can he stay down there? He just about can. They both slide in the corner. They've only to make contact out of the turn into the big Odopato, where we've seen contact before. And no doubt we'll see it again, but not between these two. Gonzalez cannot find his way past, and Dunkovic holds on to 8th place in the AM lead again.
Still holding on to it at the present moment is Dunkovic putting on defensive masterclass is a driver of the 9, as Jose Gonzalez not really able to make this move work. Interlagos, as much as you've got that slipstream game, you don't have too many opportunities to go for a late breaking dive. It's really turn number 1, turn number 4, and that's about all. Let's see how it's going to work for him as he tries to look for the move around the outside down into turn number 1. It's a battle less late breakers between these two, and it's going to be Gonzalez still holding on. Now going to be on the inside through 2, as it's a battle up at the front as well for the overall race win, and that's going to be Dunkovic holding on for now. But here comes Benlid. He's going to make it 3 wide soon, I think.
He squeezes down the inside. It is 3 wide. Gonzalez with all the ability here on the outside. He's going to go faster. Contact. Is he got a round? Where has he got to here, Gonzalez? Oh, he's still on the road. He just got off the road there for a moment as he let that car get away from him on the inside line for turn 2, or for second place, I should say. He's still there, and he's got the lead, has he, at the expense of Benlid? Is it going to be as he were here, as Dunkovic gets past John Benlid as well? Maybe not, as they all come into the turn 8 as well. This is a great battle between these two. Finally, Gonzalez has the lead. How much of an advantage is he going to get here? Because these two are still side by side. Now Dunkovic gets back to second.
And now that we're coming up to 15 minutes into this race already at the first quarter done in this race, I wonder if we're going to start to see these drivers make that call to pit here. We may end up seeing that here soon, as look at that. That's Bodefer fanning out and maybe thinking about getting a moved on Aiden Young down into turn number 1. But that battle for the AM lead was absolutely insane. I'm not going to say I called it, but as soon as I was like, I have a feeling they're going to be 3 wide soon, about 5 seconds later, they're 3 wide heading down the backstretch. I think that more or less proves the point that I made a little bit earlier on, how turn number 4 is just as good of an overtaking opportunity as turn number 1 is, as Ryan Odo proved that a matter of just 1 lap ago, as he got a move done down the inside of Aiden Young, down into that turn. Just a simple out-braking maneuver works out well for him. But right as I said it, we got some drivers coming down pit lane in the form of David Unger and Cedric Ohayan.
Ed Young, by the way, was very happy to facilitate that, by the way, when Ryan Odo went down his inside, which is an interesting thing to note. But yeah, we are starting to see some proper scheduled pit stops now. We are over a quarter of the way through the race, to be fair, so it can only be a couple of laps at the very maximum now for these guys to still stay out there. Surely, you would imagine they'll be coming in very, very soon. They often do stay out for as long as they can in this first stint to run that tank dry and just ensure they don't come out in so much traffic. Might be less of a problem today because they've got quite spread out quite quickly at Interlagos. But let's see, pit stop surely upon us here, and they are. Oh, one stays out, and there you go, Butterford down the inside of Aiden Young into the pit lane. That is bold as Rustin Fazuri stays out on the racetrack.
And that was really, really deep on the brakes for those racers heading down pit lane. Just about everybody making that call to come down pit lane. Gotta keep my eyes peeled to see whether or not any of them picked up any sort of penalty through that run in pit lane. But Young, Vieira, Odo, and Bodefer all making that call to pit. Rasim Fauzi, on the other hand, he's going to stay out for one more lap. I wonder if that strategy is going to work out well for the driver of the number 16 car. But it looks like everyone has gotten their pit stops taken care of. Aiden Young spending a lot of time down pit lane. It must be said, Vieira spending along too. They've dropped down throughout the rest of that field. We could see this close call from Fauzi taking that call to say, you know what, I'm going to stay out for another lap. He holds onto the race lead. But of those drivers who came down pit lane, John Bodefer cycled out in front.
Yeah, he has. So pit stop times are like this: 13.4 for Bodefer, 14.9 for Odo, then just 12.9 for Sanders, who's up in behind them as there's more AM pit stops happening there. 16.4 for Obodo Diaz, 20.1 for Aiden Young, 20.6 from Lucas Vieira. I would say that Young and Vieira in that case have gone for as much fuel as they can possibly get into that car at this stage in the race, and they're going to win that back a little bit later on with a shorter fuel fill. But Odo and Bodefer are going side by side here on different strategies, but they could do with working together and not going side by side like this.
Yeah, this is not really helping these racers as we see them battling for second. Rasim Fauzi has made that call to come down pit lane, so that will give the race lead back to John Bodefer, or maybe he'll give it to Ryan Odo. He's trying to make this move done down that start finish straight away. Now it's going to be Ryan Odo jumping into the race lead. Bodefer not really fighting that too much.
Fauzi was about 12 seconds in the box, so this is going to be quite close. But looks like it's going to be the race lead for the debutant in 2025. 2 seconds or so. Ryan Odo is not going to get back to the lead here, and there you can see it. The gap's going to stay at around 2 seconds, in fact, to Rasim Fauzi at the moment. And so Ryan Odo is going to lead the charge to try and catch him. But that does rather eliminate the fuel saving games that were going on through that first stint. That'll be the concern for the likes of Aiden Young. He was towing them around for most of that first stint in the race. And if they have had shorter pit stops, partly because they've saved fuel compared to him, then he's got a huge job on his hands. Obviously, he wouldn't have lost 8 seconds all because of fuel saving, but he could have lost some of it because of that.
It could have lost out on a little bit of time. That's the yin and yang effect when it comes to trying to save some fuel. It can work out well and set yourself up well later on in the race, but at the same time, you do lose some time with that clutching and coasting. You know, the first time I ever watched the Indy 500 back in 2016 was the year that Alexander Rossi was basically clutching at straws at the end of that race to try and make it to the end. If that race was one more lap long, he would have lost it just because he had enough fuel, but at the same time, he was going oh so slow to make it to the end. There reaches that certain point where the fuel game just isn't worth playing, and we may end up seeing these racers have to balance that throughout not just this race, but the rest of the races that we have from the season. As Bodefer giving that lift, that's good fuel number strategy right there. Not really having to lift off for hundreds and hundreds of feet. He's not driving around this racetrack, puttering around in 6th gear and clutching into every single corner instead of hitting the brakes. He's not hypermiling it, as I think you Brits will call. But what he's doing instead, he is just going about this in a rather smart way, just lifting into the turns, thinking, you know what, not going to go for this move, not going to force the issue. I'm just going to keep calm, stay behind, get that draft, and get a bit of fuel saving with the lifts.
Yeah, it was very telling, actually, on the way towards turn 1, just what a big load of fuel saving that was. This is further down in the AM class. Oh, was Charles Credits hit there as well? Again, was he? Perhaps rear-ended. Now struggling to get that car back going again. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was definitely contact. I didn't spot it first time round, but it's obvious now. I'm looking for it. Alfredo Torres Souza misjudging that towards turn 8.
And another moment involving Alfredo Souza and one of those flying line racing cars we first saw. It was Souza and Gregory coming to blows, heading their way off through turn number 10. And yet again, we see 2 of those drivers come to blows. This time it's Gregory's teammate in the form of Charles Krasik. So interesting how the world works at certain points in time, as we can see back again with the live action up towards the front of the field. Odo not really giving Bodefer that draft, but Bodefer wasn't chasing after it either. He is comfortable remaining in P3 at the present moment. moment and letting this race fall into his hands. That's a big phrase that probably goes through these drivers' minds. Let the race fall into my hands. I don't need to go out there hunting for a rabbit, because in the process of going out there hunting, I'm probably going to end up getting whacked by a tree branch or something like that. I think these drivers are thinking, you know what? Let me just let the race fall into my hands instead of trying to chase this race with my hands open.
And, you know, it's been a feature of this season, and indeed a feature of these races in the Radical Sim Racing Americas and European Championships. In fact, when we've done these hour-long races, instead of, you know, two shorter races where people might be more minded to think short-term about how they want to get to the end of the race and how they want to beat everybody else by making overtakes all the time. Here it's a lot more of a considered race, but when you get to the middle of the race, when you've made one stop, still one more to go, there's very little point in actually racing with one another, because you need to try and go as fast as you possibly can. You're seeing it in the top of your screen right now for second place. Ryan Odo has got Joan Beautifort all right behind him, and on a normal day there was 7 minutes to go rather than 37. Beautifort would be overtaking him right now, or at least pressuring him. But because we're at this stage in the race, it doesn't make any sense to fight, and so the middle of the race can feel a lot like this for some time between the two pit stops.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, as much as it may not be bringing those bare-knuckle fist fights that we saw in the earlier stages, it's going to set ourselves up for having a pretty good image as to how the end of this race is going to work out. You won't have to worry about these drivers having a safe fuel towards the end. They could just come down pit lane and have a full, flat-out run through to the fall of the checkered flag. I do want to raise this, though, as we follow these racers head around this racetrack. A lot warmer now than it was a little bit earlier on. Ambient temperatures currently around 74 degrees Fahrenheit and track temperatures at about 85. So that is getting to the upper limit of comfortable for the tires on these race cars. Now the SR10s, they have very durable tires. There have been certain times last season, for instance, in those 45-minute long races that we had in the Radical Americas and European Championships, where these drivers would probably have about, I think, 20% wear at most on their tires. These tires can last a long time, so that's not really an issue, but they do have a rather thin window when it comes to where they're best when it comes to operating temperatures. Gets too hot, you're going to skid around the track and it's going to get too greasy. Too cold, on the other hand, you're going to go into the braking zones and you're going to be running around these racetracks like a dog on a freshly polished wood floor. Very fine line that these drivers have to raise when it comes to tire temperatures.
Yeah, there certainly is. And, well, right now, Ryan seems to be bouncing that rather well. Last time round, he actually lost a bit of time to Rasim Fazui, but it is, well, it's a gap that's generally trending downwards, we'll put it that way. 1.4 seconds is now the gap. And just check on the first sector times. Yeah, I thought he'd made a mistake. Fazui did a 23.1 in sector 1 this lap. Everybody else is in the 22.4s, 22.3s or 22.2s. So that was definitely a mistake from the race leader into the CNRS. And again, I've said that, you know, it's not really about wheel-to-wheel racing, it's about your speed at this middle stage of the race. You absolutely can't afford to make unforced errors like that.
Yeah, if you have a small little mistake at this point in the race, it may be the one that sees the least amount of haymakers being thrown these drivers' ways, but it is super vital to just keep that consistent form running all throughout this stage of the race. And I will note this as well. That gap of 1.4 seconds, you can see these drivers aren't nose to tail, but that's a rather small gap when it comes to the SR10s, because if Ryan Odo can break through and gain, I don't know, maybe let's say about a half a second, maybe a little bit more than that, we would end up seeing a 3-car battle for the race win. And based off the fact that your race leader of Rasim Fauzi, he's not out of harm's way just yet. He's got the lapped car, the number 12 of Gregory Castillo, a little bit farther up the road. We'll probably end up catching up to him either at the end of this lap or the start of the next one. And once that happens, we may end up seeing that gap between Fauzi and Ryan Odo just absolute crater down.
Oh dear, we've already got a black flag for Alfredo Tarazas Souza, who is putting some pressure onto Robert Neville here. for 18th position overall, but unfortunately has got that that black flag, which is going to set aside all the importance for that. There's Gregory Castillo. Well, he's figuring out the best way to get out the way of the leader here. And yeah, you can see it's very, very difficult to do that. Just runs around the inside. Now looking to the inside of this next corner. It's very, very awkward to try and stay out of the way as much as he can. There go Odo and Bodafor now through into the final corner. And there you go. It's difficult to stay in a rhythm when you're Gregory Castillo in that situation. Trying to be helpful, stay out of the way, but you are really interrupting your own race by doing that.
And when it comes to rhythm for these races, these cars are so rhythm based. You know, it's not a car where you have to keep the momentum rolling. It's not like a Formula V or something like that. It's got the power to pull the legs on the straightaway. But from a driver's side of things and from a car side of things as well, if you keep hitting your marks, if you keep that car going in a straight line and you can remain in that groove, you're going to feel good. But at the same time, if you have some sort of mistake, if you have a bit less confidence in your driving skills than you did a little bit earlier on, let's just say, that will start to be when we see these drivers have the mistakes pile up. I've been in that situation before running the SR10. You feel like you're in a groove, then you have some sort of lockup, then those lockups become a bit more common, then you have a sideways snap, and that sideways snap snowballs from there to end up being a full-on spin. These cars, they are ones where you need to keep in that groove. If you keep it in the groove, you're going to be good. If not, you're going to be in for a world of hurt.
The gap's now grown back to 2 seconds again for the race leader, Rasim Fazui, who's currently out front. God, don't forget, a little bit less fuel on board, and that's why it might be a little bit easier to extract some speed out of that car compared to Ryan Odo, who'll be probably in about 2 laps after Fazui and 1 lap after John Bodafor, unless there's going to be some fuel games going on here. Maybe Bodafor's going to save enough fuel to pit on the same lap as Odo here, because that seems what he's doing quite well from being sat behind Ryan Odo here. As you can see in the background there, lots of traffic about. Obodo Diaz, Graham Sanders and Aidan Young all running nose to tail. Sanders being caught pretty quickly here, and Obodo Diaz has dispatched of him now for 4th position.
And as we saw that slow motion replay of Alfredo Souza having a sideways snap, heading his way out of turn number 4, we're starting to see the challenges of this racetrack really bubble up. I mean, when you think of easy racetracks to drive around, Interlagos really isn't one of them. This track is just about everything you could want out of a racing circuit. You've got those long flat out blasts, you've got the fast sweeping bends, you've got the medium speed corners as well, the heavy braking zones to try and get a move done. You've also got the slow turns. This is a driver's track. It's fun to drive around, but really test your skill as well. And I think we're starting to see these drivers rise up to the top, even if they had a bad start. Like, for instance, your current AM leader, Jose Gonzalez, he's been able to shuffle his way back up to the front of this field just through pace and pace alone, and is holding onto a rather comfortable cushion in that class presently. So this is a track that really can reward a driver's skill.
Well, we're about to get to the halfway stage now of the Interlagos round in the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship, as we are here tonight. Now then, does Sanders fight back with Diaz, and does this descend now into a real scrap for 4th place, allowing the others to get out front or not? Young not showing too much signs of getting interested. Now he's getting interested. Here he goes to the inside. He might well try and take them both here. No, it's going to be just Graham Sanders. Diaz gets it wrong though. Inadvertently gives Young a chance to take 2 for 1. Inside line for turn 3, and he's got it. So Obodo Diaz makes a very costly error here, although that was super close. Sanders gets into the back now, it looks like, of Aidan Young down the straight. Is he going to go for an overtake? The answer is no, and Aidan Young is up to 4th position in front of Graham Sanders, and Diaz will be kicking himself for that error.
Yeah, and that is going to be a costly mistake to make here. And these drivers, as much as it may be a very long road in front of them from this race, that can really mess with you. It messes with your morale. If you're running in that groove and you're running smooth, you have that first mistake, and it kind of shatters that worldview. And I'm sure you've probably been in the situation before, just racing and whatever you may be running in, and then as soon as you have some sort of mistake, what felt like you being one with the machine, that sort of illusion, so to speak, gets broken, and then you really don't know what to think. You really don't know how to drive. It really messes with your brain, albeit, you know, a very good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel. It certainly happened to me both in the sim and in real life. Super important to be confident, especially in a car like this where you need to have that confidence into the brakes, turning that steering wheel and hitting that gas pedal out of the turns. So once you have something like that happen, you can really start to see that snowball out of control. So that is a costly mistake in more ways than one.
You can see the lead also starting to extend now to nearly 3 seconds out front. That is Rasim Fazui, who is leading the race. Last time around was 4 tenths quicker than Ryan Odo. A pretty significant amount, and you wouldn't imagine that's all down to the difference in fuel loads that will be obvious between these guys. We'll see Fazui in first. I don't know about you, it seems to me that Fazui might well be out for another 3 laps, maybe 3 more times past the pit lane before he comes in. But we'll have to see really just how long this stint is going to be, or whether it'll be even shorter than that, because after all, we're well into the second half of the race now.
Yeah, Rasim Fazui, my apologies. I think he's looking pretty. I mean, I mentioned this a little bit earlier on, talking about him and his series debut. As much as he does have a very high I rating, the same could be said about a driver like Aiden Young, for instance, and he even has struggles in his series debut. Rasim Fazui, on the other hand, I think if he can hang on to this, that would be a very impressive debut in this series, grabbing the race win. Let's see what the Canadian will be able to do. That gap to himself and Odo has ballooned out to 3.2 seconds. It's about double compared to what was once we saw those drivers come down pit lane not too terribly long ago. But we are starting to switch our attention from that first round of pit stops into the second and final one for these racers. Only 26.5 minutes on the clock nearly left in this race. So I gotta wonder who has set themselves up well and who's set themselves up poorly for this second stint. I think I have 2 mentions for both of those categories. Drivers who have set themselves up well, I would probably say the likes of Fazui, and honestly, I think Ryan Odo, he's been on damage control after that first run through pit lane. He's been able to jump up rather good. One driver, though, who hasn't really been able to set himself up well for the second stint is Ubaldo Diaz. After that mistake, he's dropped down to 6th, and I don't really think he was on a too terribly flashy and flamboyant strategy either. So I think we definitely got split cases throughout this field of drivers who are looking good for the final stint and those who may have a bit of a task on their hands to remain in the spot they're in.
Yeah, let's see. It's the fascination with this series and the different pit stops that you have to take. 2 pit stops over the course of the day. And the difference in terms of the length they can be is pretty wild, really. So that creates all sorts of differences in terms of speed and also in terms of strategy. Now then, is that Buttafor actually going to go through, or was he just poking the nose out there for a brief moment? It doesn't look like anything too serious. And Ryan Odo is able to keep second place. These two are on completely different strategies, really. Buttafor was only in the pit lane for a second and a half shorter than Odo, but nevertheless, it is a pretty important second and a half. They're all trying to run away from guys like Aiden Young and Alberto Diaz, who were in the pit lane for quite a long time during that first stop. So those are the guys who've got to be worried about on the exit. They won't be particularly worried about Graham Sanders, who unfortunately has had quite a short pit stop and is languishing down in 5th place at the moment, just hanging on to the back of Aiden Young.
And basically clinging on for life, so to speak, is Graham Sanders being just holding on to that rear wing and being like, hang on, I want to be dragged up into this front pack fight with you. Graham Sanders, he's been a rather intriguing driver to follow up to this point in this season. Has probably been one of the most exciting drivers to follow up to this point in the season, if we're being honest. He's been the one that is always willing to get down and try and get some moves done. And I wonder if Graham Sanders will be able to try and pull from that toolbox between now and the end of this race. 24 minutes left to go in it as we look at some of the other racers running in this field. Robert Neville, who we follow right now in the number 87 car, getting the view of him behind the wheel of his sim rig. I gotta say, maybe I'm just an old man at heart, but I absolutely love that blue plaid background of the stream.
I'm not sure that's the background of his room, though, is it? Well, I remember him covering him another series. I'm not sure that's his actual background, but he's just put it in there. So there you go.
If that is his wall, I give him a lot more respect.
Yeah,
that takes dedication.
Can you imagine? The painting on there be a nightmare.
The power of wallpaper. It would look like something that would be sold at an estate sale.
That's quite some wallpaper. Anyway, yes, that is a lap down for Neville now, and Charles Kresic will be suffering a similar fate before too long. In terms of down towards the back end of the field, by the way, we're only just seeing a second pit stop now for Gregory. Well, it's not a second pit stop really at all, is it? Unfortunately, it looks like it's a retirement for Gregory Castillo. James Franznik, though, is into the pit lane, and that does look like the early signs of the first pit stops of round number 2 coming up here. And I've got to say, Rasim Fazui has got to be in pretty soon and kicking this off himself, actually, from the lead.
Yeah, and once he comes down pit lane, I think this slow trickle of drivers making their entrance into pit lane is going to turn into a full-on flood. And right as you said it there, Ewan, absolutely amazing timing, as we have now seen Rasim Fazui make that call to come down pit lane in that number 16 Lima Racing car. Ewan may need to go and get a lottery ticket. That was perfect timing from you.
Well, maybe if they give me a clue about what lottery numbers might be picked out, I might go have a go. It's a bit cheating, isn't it? But there you go. We'll see how long this pit time actually is. It should be Graham Sanders in next lap, maybe John Bertefort and Ryan Nodo the ones after that, quite soon after. But there's the pit time, 14.3 for Fazui. Now that's the target for Odo. He was about just over 3 seconds behind. So if Odo's pit stops 11 seconds or shorter, I think he'll be pretty pleased with that.
I think he will be very, very happy with that. Let's see how this pit cycle is going to work out. As much as that first one can really make or break your race, this second run through pit lane will basically decide where you are going to finish roughly in this race. And it's looking good for some racers and looking pretty bad for others. Let's see who will be the next to make that call to come down pit lane. It's going to be Cedric Ohayana in the number 44 car, but the front of the field, who will be the next? Will it be Ryan Odo and John Bodefer coming into the pits together? Have a feeling these two are maybe going to split their strategies. I think one will come in before the other. Let's see who will be the first to make that call to pit, or if they're going to both play me like a fiddle. They stay out on this lap. Bodefer got to look to try and get a move done nearly around the outside in that iRacing Geodesic racing car. That's probably the most amount of aggression we've seen from John Bodefer in this stint thus far. So I think Bodefer starting to force this issue a little bit. He's gotten that good fuel number. He's now trying to maybe attack potentially as his teammate of Graham Sanders has come down pit lane.
Gosh, I think that's more of Ryan Odo moving out of his line than it is Butterford trying to actually make a move. But Graham Sanders is indeed into the pit lane. His pit stop time is going to be one of the longer ones, out to 14 seconds as well, you would imagine. Yep, 13.1 it is. So Sanders will drop quite a long way back compared to Fazui, actually, who's going to be well over 8 seconds, nearly 10 seconds actually in front of him. So next time round should be John Butterfoot, and the one after that should be Ryan Odo, unless they come in both at the same time here, because the geodesic man has saved enough fuel. Let's see here as we get to the last third of this race.
Yeah, we are definitely in crunch time here for round number 5 of the Radical Americas Championship. We've got drivers still waiting for their final stop. Lots of drivers still waiting for their final stop, which, as I said a few moments ago, super vital. It can really make or break your race as much as that first one can. These strategy calls super vital around a racetrack like this as well. It can make or break your race, and a good end to the first half can make or break your season as well. As you can see, those racers getting oh so dangerous to that inside pit interior. They stay out yet again, and it looks like there's going to be some more drivers staying out in the back. A shot, Aiden Young going to stay out for another lap. Ubaldo Diaz staying out along with Lucas Vieira in the number 18 car. So Rasim Fazui making that rather early call to pit compared to some of these racers.
Well, he just didn't take as much fuel on board in that first pit stop, and so he had to come in. He was going to be out of fuel at the end of that lap, I would have guessed. He had to come in, but he's gone for the strategy of let's get out in front, let's break the slipstream to the others, not let them be towed around in my slipstream all day long, saving fuel. Instead, I'll go out on my own. And that's exactly what he's done. The problem he's going to have, or he could have had, was any traffic. He's got out ahead of all the AMs, though, so that's been alleviated. He's going to be watching, well, if he could, super keenly at Ryan Odo versus John Butterfield into the pit lane here, because I believe they'll both be following each other in at the end of this lap.
And let's see what these drivers do in terms of their strategy. Will they come in together? Will they split? And this battle has implications both when it comes to that driver championship battle and the team championship battle as well in that pro category, as it goes side by side with that battle going on at the bottom of your screen between Jared Dunkovich and John Bentley. That's a battle for AM, as I think they're both going to come down pit lane together. Bodeferga maybe trying to overtake him on pit entry.
He's trying to do it again. He's been very cheeky on pit entry so far this afternoon, as John Butterfield trying to make up positions on the way into the pit lane, but Ryan Odo was waiting for it that time. Now then, watch out for the pit stop time. Oh, he's just overrun his box there. Odo overrun his box, and that could be absolutely crucial here. Fazui could well be out in the lead here, despite the pit stop time for Odo. Let's see how long it is going to be, though, here, as Butterfield goes already. Oh, my word, Odo, 11 seconds. That pit lane time is exactly where he needed it to be, but he's overshot his box here. He's overshot the box, and he's thrown away perhaps a chance at winning this race this afternoon.
And it's those small little mistakes that can make a huge difference in these races. We talk about the mistakes that can be made out there on this racetrack, and trust me, with a racetrack that's 2.68 miles with 15 turns throughout it, very easy to have a mistake out there on the road, but a mistake on pit road can be just as costly, if not even more costly. And we just saw that there from Odo, a crushing mistake for the young American, going to be dropping down into P6 presently. You see that gap between himself and Bodefer. It's not an unrecoverable situation, but he's still definitely on the back foot.
He certainly is. Now, Roberto Diaz will be next in, perhaps from the lead of the race, as Jose Gonzalez made his final stop as well, by the way. That's why this is your AM lead battle now between Dunkovich and Benlid. They really could have been working together, to be honest, to try and catch Gonzalez here, but since they've been going side by side and racing, I'm going to suggest that they aren't going to find the rear end of that car anytime soon out front. Diaz has carried on for one more lap, by the way, so should be the end of the next lap before he comes in. But see, these guys are running out a long time here, and especially for the likes of Aidan Young, who's going to leave it very, very late for his last stop.
And as we are still waiting for the front three to make that call to come into the pits, along with your front two in the AM category, that AM battle is still rather interesting. It's looking good for Jose Gonzalez for him to be able to grab his first win, but it is some close racing between these two who have yet to come in for their second stop. That's Dunkovich with the dive into one. He's going to jump into P8 and the AM lead over John Bentlid. That's a battle of great importance as well, because those drivers looking good for the point. Jared Dunkovich, he has been rather quick ever since he joined this series. It's a good result for him if he can just hang on. It'd probably be P2 in that AM category, but hey, P2's nothing to scoff at either. Silver's rather shiny, and as much as it may not look as good as gold, it still gives some pretty good points.
Well, those two are going to look like they're first and second for some time, because they've still got plenty of fuel on board. So is this man, Aidan Young, the WSR Esports team, who are flying high at the moment. Last couple of iRacing special events, they've done a very good job, WSR Esports team. Aidan Young with 15 minutes to go, doing a decent job in this race. So, Roberto Diaz carried on again there, has he? Well, he has. Well, he's squeezing fuel out there that I didn't think he had. He's continuing on. Whether he'll be an actual factor for the race lead, I'm not so sure, but he's certainly going well. Ryan Odo has caught up to John Butterfield now, but this is all time that could have been spent trying to catch up to Rasim Fazui.
Yeah, these two battling, it's not going to do them any favors. It's going to feel good in the moment. That's going to give us some good racing to talk about here on this broadcast. But when it comes to the points and when it comes to the opportunity to win this race, not going to do these drivers any favors. I appreciate them giving us some good battles to talk about, But I think for their own interest in mind, it's probably better for them to try and look ahead, work together as pseudo teammates, and then be able to start battling once you reel in Rasim Fazui. So really, as it stands presently, I think these drivers not really doing themselves any favors presently. Who knows though? We still have about 14 minutes left to go in this race. So it's Rasim Fazui is not entirely out of the woods just yet. But the two behind not really doing themselves many favors when it comes to giving the number 16 car a headache heading into the end of this race.
Well, so far they've not been able to do anything about it one way or the other, really. As Young carries on for another lap. Surely Diaz is in this time. Yes, he is. Finally from second position, so we'll drop behind these guys. Rhino now, by the way, will surely get past John Bertefort, and I think John knows it as well. 2.7 seconds, the gap has been climbing to Fazui, actually, who gets slipstream of his own on the way down towards turn number 1. That time that was James Franznik. He was just putting one lap down. Odo Bertefort get past Diaz, and that is a spin up ahead for one of the lap cars. That's Cedric Ohayon, who goes for a spin through the center S.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate moment for the other Lima Racing competitor, losing it out of turn number 2. Super tough section of the racetrack, because really to go fast through there, you have to use the curbs, which in these SR10s, where the front splitter's relationship with the ground is super, super important to keep that car going quickly around this track. If you hit one of those curbs, you're going to be in for a world of trouble, especially with the elevation change there as well. You can see that initial curb whack gets him sideways, tries to keep the momentum rolling and the slide continuing through turn number 2, but it was just too violent of a snap. Around he goes. Unfortunate mistake for him to have, but he currently found himself in P16 at the present moment as a result of it. It did happen, and his tires are going to be feeling a burn after that spin.
Absolutely. And that can't be helpful in these ever rising track conditions now. Track temperatures 31 degrees Celsius, high 80s Fahrenheit now. So ever increasing. There are the conditions indeed on the left-hand side. It is an hour later than what we had to start with in qualifying, as Odo will come under fire again here from Bertefort, or will he? I think that might be John saying, yeah, I'm not going to come past you, so focus on your own race here. But the gap to Fazui continues to extend, and well, he's going to be difficult to catch now. If there's no slipstream opportunity, that'll be a lap car in front. Nearly 3 seconds to catch in less than 12 minutes. This is looking difficult now for those trying to catch Rasim Fazui.
I would say we are rapidly approaching upon the point where closing in that sort of gap is going to go from difficult to nearly impossible. We're definitely getting there. It's looking good for Rasim Fazui, holding on to that race lead still, as James Franznik in the number 39 car going to get out of the way of your net P2 and P3 in this race of Ryan Odo and John Bodefur. Yet to see Aiden Young and Lucas Vieira make that call to come down pit lane, although that will have to happen between now and the checkered flag. So looking good for Fazui right now, holding on to that 2.8 second lead. And I'm not sure. I will double check this real quick to try and see what the situation is for your race leader. Lucas Vieira has actually gone off the racetrack, heading his way out of the final turns. That's not going to do him any favors. I was just looking to see what sort of drama may have been going on right in front of him in terms of lap traffic situations for your net race leader of Rasim Fazui. But right as I was doing that, Vieira went off the track, heading his way through the final real corner of turn 12.
Now only a second ahead of Fazui. Here comes Bertefort again. Again, he's reassuring Odo that he won't make the pass, at least for the moment. Might be lulling him into a false sense of security for later on. But for now, they are working together. Fazui now within the slipstream of Lucas Vieira. And as you say, has made that mistake. There's a couple of mistakes now from Vieira over the course of this race, which is going to be disappointing to him. Majorly disappointing, actually, to him. We'll see where he ends up, but these latest battle mistakes, I reckon that's going to be even close to keeping Diaz and Sanders behind, to be honest. Vieira might even be outside of the top 5.
Yeah, 9.5 minutes left to go in this 60-minute long race. These races absolutely fly by. You think, okay, an hour, it's going to drag on forever. No, with the strategy content that we've got in these races, they feel rather quickly paced. These drivers have all sorts of drama being thrown their way. As we take a look at a moment, maybe involving Aiden Young as he heads his way down that start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1, staying out once again. So Aiden Young, he will have to come into the pits at some point. He did take a very long stop, though, on the first time. I wonder if he will pull off a miracle and be able to make it to the end, as Vieira certainly won't. He's now made that call to come into the pits with a lockup on pit entry as well. But I would be absolutely dumbfounded if Aiden Young decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do one stop in this race. I'm not even sure if that's allowed by the rules.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a two-stop race. In fact, Vieira was longer in the box first time round than what Young was. So actually, you'd think at the end of this lap, it's got to be this time for Aiden Young. And there'll be less than 8 minutes to go at that stage, and that's one of the disadvantages, I suppose, we're going for such a long early pit stop, isn't it? You end up in traffic, first of all, which is a little bit what hampered Young at times during that stint, but also you don't give yourself very many minutes to actually make overtakes once you come back out again from your second pit stop of the day.
And so for these racers presently, with only a couple more drivers left to come down pit lane, we jump back again with the action involving Young. He heads his way down this start-finish flat-out blast, rounding his way through some of these final kinks. Will be a stop here from Aiden Young. He's below that white line, gonna stay out yet again. Aiden Young, he's also got some lap traffic to worry about here as well, so I wonder how that gap is going to remain between himself and Rasim Fazui. But Young staying out yet again, now with 7.5 minutes left to go in this race. This is a very lengthy stint from Young.
Yeah, it certainly is. He has now done 24 laps on this tank of fuel. To be honest, that's already further than I thought he'd managed, so surely he is not going to manage another 5 laps, or 6 laps rather, which is what he would need to do here. It would be an unbelievable effort, and you can see that Fazui is, on occasion, benefiting a little bit from him staying out for so long. Ryan Odo's gaining a little bit of time on Rasim Fazui, but I'm not sure how Aiden Young can pit in, make that fuel... put the fuel into the car and then come back out again in front of Rasim Fazui, who's only 14 seconds behind.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do in a situation like this. I'm going to look through right now and see what the legalities are of the pit stops that are mandated for these racers. The fuel tanks are limited in this series. This is a fixed setup series, mind you, here in the Radical Americas Championship, and the same as well goes for the European Championship and those Friday 2100 GMT broadcasted races here on RaceSpotTV. So let's see. Young taking a shallower line this time by. I think this is a pit stop there for Aiden Young, so I can avoid my reading time for now, as Young has made that call to pits.
Yeah, there are 2 mandatory pit stops anyway in this series, so it was always going to be for Young, just a case of when is it going to be. So over the line for Fazui now. That will be 4 laps to go in this race for him, and he will take the lead by nearly 3 seconds. What a 2025 debut this is turning out to be for the Canadian. Here comes Aiden Young. He's going to be very close to Odo and Butterfoot. That is going to be the battle to watch here. Look at that. Straight through, Odo and Butterfoot go past, and that's what John Butterfoot has been waiting for. Will he now make a move? He will. He has been waiting for that moment. He wanted to put Aiden Young behind him, and now he's going to strike while he's got the opportunity here with 4 laps to go. Inside line at turn 4, and he's got up into second place.
And now we've got 2 of the fastest drivers in this series, maybe going to duke it out down into turn number 7. I thought we were going to see Aiden Young go for a dive on Ryan Odo down into that section. John Bodefer still there within striking distance as well. It looks like he may try and go for a move between now and the end of this race. But these drivers still oh so close. Odo going to get a good run out of the turn up into turn number 10 as look at the dive from Young.
That was contact always round. All three of them will have been involved in some sort of brush there as they come now down in towards the final corner. Young does look quick again here. Odo, of course, his main rival in the championship, his closest rival at the moment, only 14 points behind. He wants to take some of those points back again here, but they're going to race super hard for them, and John Butterfield wants to gain on both here, if he possibly can. Down the straight, where's Young going to go? Because Odo's only going to get the slipstream. Now Butterfield's going to get it, and or going to give it to him rather here. Oh, and it's a late break-in from Young. He moves up to third place now.
Yeah, and really full commitment from these racers, throwing haymakers at each other. Bodefer, Young, and Odo are the three cars involved in this pack. Not really sure if anyone else is going to get involved in this drama as Bodefer taking that defensive line. They touch, though!
Contact, and the championship leader is off down at turn number 4, spinning backwards into the tarmac runoff on the exit of the Interlagos turn. Aiden Young drops from the battle for second, and he will finish this race at best in 4th position.
And with that crash down into turn number 4, Aiden Young will have to settle for a P4. If he has another moment, though, again, with that slide off the track, those tires are going to be dusty and they're going to be hot. If he drops down even more, that is going to spell disaster for him, as he's got Ubaldo Diaz behind him now. As we take a look at that battle down into the turn, just side-by-side racing gone wrong between those racers. Now Aiden Young going to be running in an uncontested P4. Let's take a look at here. Bodefer taking that defensive lane even before thinking about getting on the brakes. Young tried to go for its side-to-side contact, and around Young goes.
I've got to say, it feels to me like Young misjudged that, and he was the one who instigated the side-to-side contact. We'll get back to that in a second, because there might be some more here. Bodefer versus Ryan Odo. This is the fight for the second place in the championship. Both of these two looking to gain points on Aiden Young while they possibly can here. The championship leader, and Odo there just finding a bit of a gap there on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side rather, of the road through turn 3. Now then, same again. But Odo doesn't quite go around the outside. I don't know if he was put off by what happened on the previous lap or not. Now he's going to go for the exit down the hill and through turn 5 in towards Ferradura. Now the fast left-hand or right-hander. Look at that. So close to contact again. Not committed enough though, Ryan Odo on the outside line, and he can't get past there.
And here in a couple of moments, Rasim Fazui is going to be taking the white flag in this race. So going to be only one more lap of racing action for the driver of the number 16 car, one more lap of racing action for the rest of the field, and this will be a titanic battle between these two to try and sort it out. I think if there's one main thing that these drivers got in their minds, though, it's probably just to keep it clean. If they come to blows, Aiden Young is going to be right back involved in this battle. For Ryan Odo, a P3 result may not be ideal, but it's really what he needs at this point in the season. Just get some good results, get some points on the board, and really try and crawl your way back up into that championship fight. As Bodefer, you can see taking that defensive line, he is heading down that flat-out blast for one of the last times in this race. Ryan Odo still there within striking distance, as Rasim Fauzi has about 13 corners left to go on track for victory.
He certainly is, but who is going to finish second? Odo or Bodefer? Ryan Odo is going to try and get that second place, but no, he's not close enough this time round. He wasn't in towards turn 1. That was a relatively poor run towards turn 4 as well for Ryan Odo that time.
Yeah, that was rather slow from Odo, so I'm not sure what I think he's going to be doing. He's thinking, you know what, why even bother going for a move down to turn number 4? It's long enough that I can get a good exit heading out of the final real corner around this racetrack and make a move stick that way. He's even looking around the outside here through the mid-sector.
Goodness me. Oh, it's contact! Outside of one part gives you the inside of the next, but Bodefer now sent into a spin. Now then, where's Young? He's not too close here, and it looks like there's a bit of damage on Bodefer's car. Is Aiden Young going to be able to get close enough here for a move maybe on the way towards the line? We will keep an eye on it, but it looks like not quite. We'll have another look back in a moment, but Rasim Fazui is going to come towards the line and win in his first race of 2025. Hitting the ground running, Rasim Fazui wins at Interlagos in the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship. A very, very strong performance indeed to win by just over 7 seconds ahead of Ryan Odo, who sees off Botafour to the line, I think, ahead of Aidan Young and Oboda Diaz rounding out the top 5. Oh, will he? Oh, not sure. And it looks like maybe not. No, Graham Sanders beat him to the top 5 at the end.
And you can see that gap between those two at the end of over an hour of racing action, 100th the gap between P5 and P6 at the line. Some incredible stuff there. Lots of twists and turns towards the end of the race. First it was Young, then it was Botafour having their own respective bits of drama. Ryan Oda, I'm sure he's not going to be too happy about how he ended up getting P2, but P2 is still a P2 regardless. I don't think there's too much that could be said other than that. But for your race winner at the end of it all, Rasim Fazui, that is a fantastic series debut from him. Bravo.
Absolutely it is. One of 2 drivers making their debut appearance in 2025 here tonight. James Franznik, the other one in the AM class, and he put on a good show at times in the AM class. It will end up 7th place on opening night for him. Jose Gonzalez, though, wins again in the AM class, which is another really, really strong performance from him. But anyway, here are the overall results. It is Rasim Fazui who has won the race ahead of Ryan Odo, who had that contact with John Botafour on the last lap for that second position. Aidan Young dropped back to 4th after contact as well, with Graham Sanders beating Obodo Diaz to the top 5. Lucas Ferreira was 7th in the end, ahead of Jose Gonzalez, the AM winner. Jarek Dunkovic and John Benelid were on the podium. Corby Book just off of it and just outside the top 10 as well. Joel Jacklin and Joe Gregory, the last drivers on the lead lap. James Franznik on debut finished 14th overall, ahead of Cedric Ohion, with Charles Greenwich, Robert Neville, David Unger and Alfredo Terres de Souza also just 1 lap down. Gregory Castillo dropped out of the race about halfway through. Let's have a chat to Rasim Fazui then, shall we, at the end of that race. Debut in 2025 and a victory. Congratulations, Rasim, on the victory. It was great to see you out there for the first time in 2025 here tonight, and you seem to have some very good speed as well. Talk us where you thought, though, that you won that race in such a strategic race as it was tonight.
Hello everyone. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, no, that was a sweaty one. I did not know how to start, so I saw I had a good start. I saw a gap on the inside. I went for it, but then I knew it was a 2-stop race, so I was like, you know what, I'll save fuel as much as possible. Then I messed up all my fuel measurements on the last lap. I was choking right before the pit entry. So then I thought to myself, well, you know what, might as well under fuel and test it out, see if we have pace. If anything, it'll just even out, and because I already had a mistake, showed that I had pace, at least for the middle stint. I preserved my tires pretty good on the first and second stint, and then was able to get a gap on the last stint.
What can you aim for from this season in 2025? Because you've joined us almost halfway through here, but clearly you've got some good speed. What are you hoping to achieve from this season?
I'll see. This one was an invitation from John and Cedric. Big shout out to Lima Racing team. Shout out to the boys. And they were like, hey, Sunday there's a race at 8 p.m. and we know you want to run the sim, and why not do it? I was like, why not? And yeah, I absolutely did not expect this result, but it always feels good to have a good strategy and to have some good pace, so I'll definitely take it.
Absolutely. Congratulations on the win here tonight, Rasim, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yep, thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks very much. That is Rasim Fazui, who has won here tonight at Interlagos in the AM class. We have time to chat to Jarek Dunkovic first of all. Finished in second position here tonight. Jarek, welcome and good to have you with us. Second place for you, just under 4 seconds off of the win in the end. But I couldn't help but notice that before that final pit stop of the day, you were battling away a little bit with John Bedlid. Was there a case to be made that maybe if you two had worked together a little bit, then you could have been a bit closer to the race win here today, perhaps?
Oh, there's always a case for it, and battling or at least drafting behind each other definitely helps. But like this track was just complete tire wear and tire degradation, and that's what we were fighting the entire time. I was trying to slow it up and try to not eat away at my tires as much as possible, because I knew that just with the track temp going up and up, it was just going to eat away. But hey, you know what? We'll come home second. Good racing between John and Jose. I hope it put on a good show for you guys too, because it was actually a lot of fun being in the middle there. Definitely a little bit more racy than it was the last race, but hey, you know what? I'll take a second and keep going hard keep charging for the championship, and can't wait to go the next round.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We've seen you for the last few rounds. Now, challenging in and around Jose Gonzalez, what is the key to beating him, do you think, over the course of a season in these individual races?
Oh, well, obviously consistency is the big thing. But besides consistency, I would probably say I got to get better at the strategy. I think strategy is where he's got a leg up on me at the moment. But hey, you know what? We're gonna keep learning, and so it's my third race in, and hey, all we can do is just keep learning and figuring it out and charging forward.
Well, congratulations, on another podium, and thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us after the race as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks very much. That's Jack Dunkovic at the end of tonight's racing here at Interlagos with another podium finish. Well, it was the sort of draft race that we were expecting, and that is for sure. Lots of exciting SR10 racing in these radicals, as there so often is, and we hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed it at home. We're now at the halfway stage in the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship. The season break now in iRacing is obviously coming up with week 13 and so on. Over the other side of that, though, we'll have another couple of races in the next season, although the races do get a little bit more spread out between the months of July. We're not actually racing at all in the Americas Championship, or indeed in the European Championship either. So one more race to come at the end of June, and that is at Watkins Glen. Very much hope that you can join us for that one. Big thanks for being tuned in tonight. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside Ron Miles and Romero Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras. We'll see you all in the Americas Championship next time in 3 weeks' time, when we visit Watkins Glen and continue our America's journey in the America's Championship. From all of us here, though, from Interlagos, it's goodbye for now.